The wrench slipped from Caleb's hand, clattering against the concrete floor of his auto shop, as the stranger's voice, low, urgent, and laced with something like fear, cut through the hum of the radio. "You don't understand. I need this truck fixed tonight." Caleb, 35, a single dad with grease-streaked arms and a heart still bruised from loss, looked up into the stranger's eyes, amber, intense, and hiding something. The stranger, Riley, stood in the doorway of Caleb's shop in the small town of Willow Creek, Oregon. At 32, Riley's auburn hair fell in loose waves, their leather jacket scuffed but stylish, a non-binary drifter who seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 untold stories. The neon sign above buzzed Caleb's auto repair, casting a soft glow over the gravel lot where Riley's battered pickup sat, its engine coughing like it was on its last breath. Caleb wiped his hands on a rag, his hazel eyes narrowing. "Look, it's past closing. I've got a kid waiting at home. Why is this so urgent?" Riley hesitated, their gaze flicking to the darkening street outside. I can't stay in one place too long. Let's just say it's complicated." Their voice was steady, but their fingers twitched, betraying nerves. Something about that vulnerability tugged at Caleb, who'd spent years rebuilding his life after his husband, Mark, died in a car accident. He sighed, glancing at the photo of his 8-year-old daughter, Mia, taped to the shop's counter, a reminder of why he kept going. "All right," Caleb said, tossing the rag aside. "But you're helping. Hand me that socket wrench." Riley's lips curved into a faint, grateful smile, and for the next 3 hours, they worked side by side under the truck's hood. Sparks flew, not just from the tools but from the quiet moments when their hands brushed, or when Riley's laugh, soft and unguarded, broke the silence. Caleb caught himself staring too long at Riley's profile, the way their brow furrowed in concentration. It felt like a betrayal to Mark's memory, yet something in Riley's presence stirred a warmth Caleb thought he'd buried. By midnight, the truck purred to life. Riley leaned against it, wiping sweat from their forehead. "You're a miracle worker, Caleb. I owe you." Their eyes held his, and for a moment, the world shrank to just the two of them, the shop's fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Caleb shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Just doing my job. Pay me in coffee sometime." Riley's smile faltered, their gaze dropping to the ground. "I don't stick around long enough for coffee dates." Before Caleb could respond, Riley pulled a wad of cash from their pocket, more than the repair cost, and pressed it into his hand. "Keep the change, and thanks." They climbed into the truck and drove off, taillights fading into the night. The next morning, Caleb woke to Mia's laughter as she played with her toy cars in their modest living room. He sipped coffee, replaying the night before, wondering why Riley's departure left a hollow ache in his chest. He was about to head to the shop when he noticed them, 3 black SUVs parked across the street, their tinted windows reflecting the morning sun. His stomach dropped. Willow Creek was a sleepy town. Strangers in suits didn't just show up. He pulled Mia close, her small hand clutching his, and peeked through the blinds. A man in a black suit stepped out, his face hard, eyes scanning Caleb's house like a predator. "Mia, stay inside," Caleb whispered, his voice tight. He grabbed his phone, heart pounding, and dialed his friend Javier, the town's deputy sheriff. "Jav, you seeing this? 3 SUVs outside my place. Something's not right." Javier's voice crackled through. "Stay put, man. I'm on my way." But as Caleb hung up, the suited man approached his porch, knocking with a force that rattled the door. Caleb opened it a crack, keeping Mia behind him. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. The man, tall with a scar across his cheek, didn't smile. "Caleb Monroe? We need to talk about the person you helped last night." His voice was cold, official, and carried an edge that made Caleb's blood run cold. Riley, where are they? Caleb's mind raced. Riley hadn't just been a drifter, they were running from something or someone, and now, whatever trouble they were in had followed them straight to his doorstep. He tightened his grip on the doorframe, glancing back at Mia, who peeked out with wide, curious eyes. I don't know where they went, Caleb said, his voice firm. They paid, they left. That's it. The man's eyes narrowed, unconvinced. We'll be watching, Mr. Monroe. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. He turned, signaling to the others, and the SUVs pulled away, leaving an eerie silence. Caleb shut the door, his heart hammering. Who was Riley, and what had he just gotten himself into? That afternoon, Caleb took Mia to his sister's house for safety, ignoring her protests about missing her favorite cartoon. It's just for a bit, kiddo, he said, ruffling her hair. Back at the shop, he couldn't focus, his hands shaky as he worked on a customer's sedan. Every creak of the shop's old walls made him jump. He kept replaying Riley's words. I can't stay in one place too long. What were they running from? And why did he care so much? As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the lot, a familiar pickup truck rolled in. Riley. They stepped out, their face pale, eyes darting like they expected trouble. Caleb, I'm sorry, they said, voice low. I didn't mean to drag you into this. Into what? Caleb demanded, stepping closer, his frustration mixing with a strange relief at seeing them again. Who were those guys? What's going on? Riley hesitated, then pulled Caleb inside the shop, locking the door. I'm not who you think I am, they said, their voice barely above a whisper. My real name's Riley Harper. I used to work for let's call it a private security firm. I saw things I wasn't supposed to, stole evidence. Now they want it back. And me gone. Caleb stared, processing. Evidence? Like what? Files, Riley said, their eyes haunted. Proof of illegal ops, surveillance, blackmail, worse. I was trying to get it to someone who could expose them, but they're closing in. They ran a hand through their hair, looking exhausted. I shouldn't have come here. Your shop was the first place I saw when my truck broke down. Caleb's mind spun. He should have been furious, should have told Riley to leave and never come back. But the way they looked at him, vulnerable, scared, yet defiant, stirred something deep. He thought of Mark, how he'd always said Caleb's heart was too big for his own good. You can't keep running, Caleb said quietly. Not alone. Riley's eyes softened, a flicker of hope breaking through. You don't even know me. Maybe not, Caleb admitted, stepping closer, their faces inches apart. But I know what it's like to feel like the world's against you. And I'm not letting those suits near my home, or you, without a fight. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them crackled, heavy with unspoken promises. Then Riley reached out, their hand grazing Caleb's arm, a touch that sent a shiver through him. You're either crazy or the bravest guy I've ever met, they said, a faint smile breaking through. Caleb chuckled, despite the fear gnawing at him. Probably both. Now, tell me everything. We're figuring this out together. Caleb's shop became their war room that night, the fluorescent lights casting stark shadows as Riley spread out a battered notebook filled with cryptic notes and maps. The air smelled of oil and coffee, the latter brewing in a pot Caleb kept for long nights. Mia was safe with his sister, but Caleb's nerves were frayed, every distant car engine making him glance at the locked door. Riley sat cross-legged on the floor, their leather jacket draped over a chair, revealing a faded band tee that clung to their frame. This firm, Vanguard, they're not just security, they explained, voice low. They're a shadow network. Politicians, CEOs, even some feds are on their payroll. I was a data analyst crunching numbers until I stumbled on their black ops files. Proof they've been rigging elections, spying on activists, you name it. Caleb leaned against the counter, arms crossed, trying to wrap his head around it. And you stole this proof? Why not go to the cops? Riley laughed bitterly. Cops? Half of them are bought. The other half wouldn't believe me without evidence, and even then, Vanguard's got people everywhere. I was trying to get these files to a journalist in Seattle, but they've been tracking me since Nevada. They pulled a USB drive from their pocket, small but heavy with secrets. This is what they're after. Caleb stared at the drive, his practical mind wrestling with the enormity of it. He was just a mechanic, a dad who coached me as soccer team and fixed carburetors. Yet here he was, tangled in a conspiracy with a stranger who made his pulse race. So what's the plan? You can't just keep driving that junker across the country. Riley's eyes met his, a mix of gratitude and guilt. I didn't plan on dragging anyone else into this. I'll leave tonight, head north. You've done enough. No way, Caleb said, his voice firm. Those suits know where I live now. If they're as bad as you say, they won't just forget me. We're in this together. He surprised himself with the conviction in his voice, but something about Riley, their fire, their fear, made him want to protect them, to stand in the gap like he couldn't for Mark. Riley's expression softened, their hand brushing Caleb's as they reached for the coffee pot. The touch lingered, electric, and for a moment, the danger felt distant. You're stubborn as hell, Riley murmured, a smile tugging at their lips. I like that. Caleb's cheeks warmed, but he held their gaze. Good. You'll need stubborn to get through this. He grabbed his laptop, an old clunker he used for invoices. Let's figure out who this journalist is and how to get you to them. They spent hours piecing together a plan. The journalist, Elena Torres, was based in Seattle, known for exposing corruption. Riley had contacted her anonymously weeks ago, but Vanguard's reach meant nowhere was safe. Caleb suggested a route through backroads to avoid highways, where cameras and checkpoints might be watching. As they talked, their voices grew softer, the space between them shrinking. When Riley laughed at Caleb's terrible sense of direction, "You're a mechanic, not a navigator." Caleb felt a spark he hadn't known since Mark. But the moment shattered when headlights swept across the shop's windows. Caleb froze, grabbing Riley's arm and pulling them behind a stack of tires. Two black SUVs idled outside, their engines rumbling like a threat. Stay down, Caleb whispered, his heart pounding. Riley clutched the USB drive, their breath shallow. The shop's door rattled as someone tested the lock. Caleb's mind raced. Mia was safe, but he and Riley were trapped. He spotted a crowbar leaning against the wall and grabbed it, his grip tight. "If they come in, you run," he told Riley, his voice low but fierce. Riley shook their head. "I'm not leaving you to deal with this." Before Caleb could argue, the door's lock clicked, forced open. A man stepped inside, the same scarred man from that morning, now flanked by another in a suit. "Mr. Monroe," Scarface called, his voice calm but menacing. "We know you're here. Hand over Riley Harper, and this doesn't have to get messy." Caleb's grip on the crowbar tightened. He glanced at Riley, their eyes wide but resolute. They nodded slightly as if to say, "We've got this." Caleb took a deep breath, stepping out from behind the tires, crowbar hidden behind his back. "I told you they're gone," he said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. "You're wasting your time." Scarface smirked, his hand resting on a holstered gun. "You're a bad liar, Monroe. Last chance." Riley stepped out beside Caleb, their chin raised defiantly. "You want me? Come and get me." Their voice was steady, but Caleb saw the tremble in their hands. He moved closer, protective, as the second man advanced, pulling a zip tie from his pocket. Caleb didn't think. He swung the crowbar, catching the second man's arm. The man grunted, stumbling back, but Scarface drew his gun, aiming at Caleb's chest. "Drop it," he snarled. Riley lunged, tackling Scarface before he could fire. The gun skidded across the floor as the two grappled, Riley's agility surprising the larger man. Caleb swung again, knocking the second man out cold, then rushed to help Riley. Together, they pinned Scarface, Caleb's knee on his chest. "Who sent you?" Caleb demanded, his voice shaking with adrenaline. Scarface laughed, blood trickling from his lip. "You're in over your head, mechanic. Vanguard doesn't lose." Riley grabbed the gun, pointing it at Scarface. "Talk, or I make sure you never chase anyone again." Their voice was ice, but their eyes betrayed fear. Caleb put a hand on their shoulder, steadying them. Before Scarface could answer, tires screeched outside. Javier's patrol car pulled up, lights flashing. The second SUV sped off, leaving Scarface cursing. Javier burst in, gun drawn, and within minutes, Scarface was cuffed and dragged away. But as the adrenaline faded, Caleb knew this was far from over. Vanguard wasn't done with them. The police station was a blur of fluorescent lights and coffee-stained desks, the air thick with tension. Caleb sat across from Javier, who scribbled notes while Riley paced, their boots scuffing the linoleum. Scarface, real name Victor Kane, was in a holding cell, but he wasn't talking. Javier rubbed his temples. "Caleb, you sure you don't know what you've stepped in? These guys aren't small time." Caleb glanced at Riley, who avoided his gaze, clutching the USB drive like a lifeline. "I'm sure," Caleb said, though his gut churned. He wanted to trust Riley, but doubts crept in. What if they weren't telling him everything? Still, the memory of their touch, the way they'd fought beside him, kept him anchored. Javier sighed. "I can hold Kane for 48 hours, Max. If this Vanguard's as connected as you say, Riley, they'll have him out by morning. You two need to lay low." Riley stopped pacing, their jaw tight. "I can't. I have to get to Seattle. Elena's waiting for the files." They glanced at Caleb, guilt flickering in their eyes. "You should stay out of this, Caleb. Take care of Mia." Caleb's chest tightened at the mention of his daughter. He'd do anything to keep her safe, but abandoning Riley felt wrong, like turning his back on something real, something worth fighting for. "Mia's safe with my sister," he said, "and I'm not letting you face this alone. We'll get you to Seattle." Riley's eyes softened, a mix of gratitude and something deeper. "You're too good for this world, Caleb Monroe." Javier interrupted, tossing Caleb his keys. "Take my old Jeep. It's off the books, no GPS stick to backroads. I'll do what I can here." He hesitated, then added, "Be careful, man. Mia needs you." Caleb nodded, his throat tight. He and Riley slipped out the back, climbing into Javier's beat-up Jeep. The night was cold, stars piercing the Oregon sky as they drove north, the USB drive tucked in Riley's pocket. Silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Finally, Caleb broke it. "You could have told me the truth from the start." Riley stared out the window, their reflection pale in the glass. "I wanted to, but I've been running so long, trusting people gets you hurt. Or worse." They turned to him, eyes raw. "I didn't expect you to care." Caleb gripped the wheel, his heart aching. "I lost someone once. My husband, Mark. Car accident 3 years ago. I know what it's like to feel alone. I couldn't let you be that." Riley reached over, their hand resting on his. "I'm sorry about Mark, and I'm sorry I brought this to your door." Their voice cracked, and Caleb saw the weight they carried, years of running, hiding, fighting. He squeezed their hand, a silent promise. They drove through the night, stopping only to refuel at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. Under the harsh glow of the pumps, Riley leaned against the Jeep, their breath visible in the chilly air. Caleb joined them, their shoulders brushing. "You think we'll make it to Seattle?" Riley asked, voice soft. We will, Caleb said, more certain than he felt. And when we do, you're buying that coffee you owe me. Riley laughed, a sound that warmed Caleb despite the cold. For a moment, they stood there, close enough to feel each other's warmth, the world's dangers fading into the background. But the peace didn't last. As they crossed into Washington, a black SUV appeared in the rearview mirror, tailing them at a distance. Caleb's heart raced. Riley, we've got company. Riley cursed, checking the side mirror. They're persistent. Floor it. Caleb pushed the Jeep harder, weaving through narrow roads lined with towering pines. The SUV kept pace, its headlights a constant threat. Riley pulled out their phone, typing frantically. I'm messaging Elena. If we don't make it, she needs to know where to look for the files. Don't talk like that, Caleb snapped, his voice sharp. We're making it. But the SUV was gaining, and when a second one appeared ahead, blocking the road, Caleb's stomach dropped. They were boxed in. He slammed on the brakes, the Jeep skidding to a stop. Men in suits stepped out, guns drawn. Riley gripped Caleb's arm. Stay calm. Follow my lead. They stepped out, hands raised, the USB drive hidden in Riley's boot. Caleb followed, his heart pounding, thinking of Mia's smile, of the life he wanted to build. The leader, a woman with sharp features and cold eyes, approached. Riley Harper, you've caused a lot of trouble. Hand over the drive, and your friend walks. Caleb's blood boiled. You're not touching them. The woman smirked. Brave, but stupid. She nodded and two men advanced. Riley moved fast, kicking one in the knee, while Caleb tackled the other, years of hauling engines giving him strength. But they were outnumbered. A fist caught Caleb's jaw, sending him to the ground. Riley screamed his name, fighting fiercely, but a gun pressed to their temple stopped them cold. Caleb, don't. Riley started, but the woman cut them off. Enough. The drive now. Riley's eyes locked with Caleb's, a silent apology. Then, in a flash, they tossed the USB drive into the woods, a desperate gamble. The woman cursed, sending her men scrambling. Riley grabbed Caleb's hand, pulling him toward the Jeep. Run! They dove inside, Caleb flooring it as gunfire erupted. The Jeep roared through the trees, branches scraping the sides. Riley clung to the door, their face pale but determined. You okay? They asked, breathless. Caleb nodded, blood trickling from his lip. Yeah. You? Barely. Riley managed a shaky smile. You're insane, you know that? Says the one who threw the drive. Caleb shot back, his heart still racing. They'd escaped, for now, but Vanguard was relentless and the drive was gone. Their only hope was reaching Elena, and fast. The Jeep rattled along a dirt road, the forest a blur of shadows as dawn broke over Washington's rugged hills. Caleb's hands ached from gripping the wheel, his jaw throbbing from the fight. Riley sat beside him, their face drawn, eyes scanning the horizon for more SUVs. The USB drive was lost in the woods, a reckless move that might have saved them or doomed them. We need to find Elena, Riley said, their voice hoarse. She's our only shot now. Without the drive, it's my word against Vanguard's, and that's not enough. Caleb glanced at them, seeing the exhaustion etched into their features. You've got me, he said quietly. That's something, right? Riley's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. More than you know. They reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining, and for a moment, the danger felt far away. Caleb's heart swelled, torn between fear and the pull he felt toward Riley. A pull stronger than he'd expected, deeper than he'd felt since Mark. They reached Seattle by mid-morning, the city's skyline a jagged contrast to Willow Creek's quiet streets. Elena Torres worked out of a small, cluttered office in Capitol Hill, a hub of activism and art. Her address was in Riley's notebook, scribbled next to a doodle of a star. They parked the Jeep a block away, wary of being followed, and slipped into a coffee shop to plan their next move. Inside, the smell of espresso grounded Caleb, a reminder of normalcy. Riley ordered 2 coffees, sliding one to Caleb with a shy smile. "Guess I owe you this, huh?" they said, echoing his words from the shop. Caleb chuckled, but his eyes caught movement outside. A black SUV cruising past, slow and deliberate. "Riley," he whispered, nodding toward the window. Riley's face paled, but they stayed calm, sipping their coffee like nothing was wrong. "We can't stay here long," they said. "Elena's office is 2 streets over. We move fast, act normal." They left the shop, blending into the morning crowd. Hipsters, commuters, dog walkers. Caleb's heart pounded, but Riley's steady presence kept him grounded. At Elena's building, a nondescript brick structure, they buzzed the intercom. A woman's voice crackled through. "Who is it?" "Riley Harper," Riley said, glancing over their shoulder. "I've got what you need." The door buzzed open, and they climbed to the 3rd floor, where Elena waited. A 40-year-old woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense vibe. Her office was a chaos of papers and laptops, protest posters lining the walls. "You're late," she said, crossing her arms. "And you look like hell." Riley smirked. "Rough couple of days." They explained everything: the files, Vanguard, the lost drive. Elena listened, her expression darkening. "You're sure they're tailing you?" she asked, glancing at Caleb. "They were at my house," Caleb said, his voice steady. "And they ambushed us last night. They're not playing." Elena nodded, pulling a burner phone from her desk. "I've got contacts who can verify your story, Riley, but without the drive, it's thin. We need something concrete, or Vanguard's lawyers will bury us." Riley slumped, running a hand through their hair. "I know. I screwed up tossing it. I couldn't let them win." Caleb put a hand on their shoulder. "You did what you had to. We'll figure this out." His voice was firm, but inside he was terrified. Mia was still with his sister, but how long could he keep her safe if Vanguard kept coming? Elena's phone buzzed, and her face tightened. "My source says Vanguard's got people in the city. You 2 need to disappear until I can dig deeper." She handed Riley a key. "Safe house, outskirts of town. Lay low. I'll call when it's clear." They left, the weight of the key heavy in Riley's hand. The safe house was a small cabin in the woods, an hour from Seattle, surrounded by pines and silence. Inside it was sparse: a couch, a kitchenette, a single bedroom. Caleb dropped their bags, exhaustion hitting him like a wave. Riley stood by the window, watching the trees, their shoulders tense. "You okay?" Caleb asked, stepping closer. Riley turned, their eyes raw. "I keep thinking about how I dragged you into this. You and Mia. You don't deserve this." Caleb closed the distance, his hand brushing Riley's cheek. "I chose this. I chose you." The words slipped out, raw and true, and Riley's breath hitched. They leaned into his touch, their lips meeting in a kiss that was soft, then urgent, a release of fear and longing. Caleb's hands found Riley's waist, pulling them close, the world narrowing to this moment. They pulled back, breathless, foreheads touching. "I don't know what happens next," Riley whispered. "Neither do I," Caleb said, his voice low. "But we're in it together." That night, they lay on the couch, Riley's head on Caleb's chest, the quiet broken only by the crackle of the fireplace. For the first time in days, Caleb felt a flicker of hope. But as they drifted to sleep, headlights pierced the darkness outside, and the rumble of engines shattered the peace. Vanguard had found them. Caleb jolted awake, Riley's hand gripping his arm as the SUV's headlights flooded the cabin. The engines cut off, leaving a suffocating silence. "They're here," Riley whispered, their voice steady but laced with fear. Caleb's heart raced, his mind flashing to Mia, safe but far away. He wouldn't let this end here. Not for him, not for Riley. "Back door," Caleb said, pulling Riley to their feet. They grabbed their bags, slipping out into the cold night, the forest a maze of shadows. Footsteps crunched behind them, voices low and urgent. Riley led the way, their knowledge of evasion kicking in, guiding Caleb through the trees to a narrow stream. They waded through, the icy water biting their legs, masking their tracks. At a clearing, they crouched behind a fallen log, catching their breath. Riley's hand found Caleb's, their fingers tight. "If we get out of this," Riley said, their voice barely audible, "I'm taking you on that coffee date. For real." Caleb managed a smile despite the fear. "You'd better." But the moment was cut short by a flashlight beam slicing through the dark. Too close. They moved again, deeper into the forest, until they stumbled on an old hunting shed, its door hanging off its hinges. Inside, they barricaded themselves, the air thick with dust and desperation. Riley pulled out their phone, the battery nearly dead. "One shot," they said, typing a message to Elena. "Vanguard at safe house. Need help. Coordinates below." They hit send, praying it went through. Caleb checked the shed, finding a rusty axe, better than nothing. They sat, backs against the wall, listening for the hunters. Minutes felt like hours until a faint buzz came from Riley's phone. Elena's reply, "FBI contact en route. Hold tight." Caleb's hope surged, but it was tempered by the sound of boots outside. A voice called, cold and familiar, the woman from the ambush. "Riley, you're out of moves. Come out, and we'll let the mechanic live." Caleb gripped the axe, his jaw tight. Riley shook their head, whispering, "She's lying. They don't leave witnesses." They stood, defiant, and Caleb followed, ready to fight. But before they could act, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Headlights flooded the clearing. Not vanguards, but police and unmarked cars. The woman cursed, and her team scattered, vanishing into the trees. FBI agents stormed the shed, badges flashing. A woman in her 50s, Agent Carter, took charge. "Riley Harper? Elena Torres sent us. You're safe now." Riley collapsed against Caleb, relief washing over them. Caleb held them tight, his own fear ebbing. Over the next days, the pieces fell into place. Elena's contacts had verified enough of Riley's story to spark an FBI investigation. Vanguard's network began to unravel, arrests piling up. The USB drive was recovered, found by a hiker days later, its files exposing a web of corruption that shook the nation. Riley testified, their courage turning them into a reluctant hero. Caleb returned to Willow Creek, Mia running into his arms, oblivious to the danger he'd faced. Riley stayed in Seattle, tying up loose ends, but they called Caleb every night, their voice a lifeline across the miles. Weeks later, when the dust settled, Riley showed up at Caleb's shop, their truck parked outside, no longer a fugitive's escape. "You owe me coffee," Caleb said, grinning as he wiped his hands on a rag. Riley laughed, stepping close. "How about dinner instead?" They kissed, soft and sure, under the shop's neon sign, the world finally quiet. Caleb thought of Mark, a pang of grief softened by hope. He'd loved and lost, but with Riley, he was ready to love again. Their story wasn't just survival, it was a testament to courage, to choosing each other against the odds. Mia, watching from the shop's doorway, giggled and ran to join them, her small hand slipping into Riley's. And in that moment, Caleb knew. They were building something new, something worth fighting for.